Campbell teaches the Year 4 class at White Oak School in Swanley, Kent. Today, Diane and her teaching assistant, Norma Kinnison, are going to make a composition using simple percussion based on work they've been doing in history about children who were evacuated from London during the Second World War. In this programme, we look at how Diane helps the class to compose simple ideas into a structured piece of music with 3 sections, trying to find musical ways of reflecting the emotions of the evacuees. The first section they worked on explored the sounds and feelings of peace and tranquility in the home. Diane and Norma did some planning work with Gwyneth Johnson, the school's music coordinator, and composer Stephen Chadwick.
Some of the ideas I had, hoping they'll come up with the ticking clock, maybe dripping tap or mum washing up in the sink, scrubbing sound maybe, the radio going quietly, how could they interpret that? The children playing and laughing, so they could use their voices as well perhaps.
It's sometimes quite having simple sounds. I think the dripping tap is a really good idea because, you know, it's just a tick. It's almost like the clocking in a way.
And but it wouldn't need to be constant, wouldn't it?
No, you could have it stopping and starting. And so the start of a composition is all the sounds at home,
the sort of
peace
safe
and
bits.
tranquility, the safeness of it. And then what do you see happening after that?
Well, we may not get further than that in the first lesson, but the plan is that they then think of how all that gets interrupted and changed. You remember that we've been talking about evacuation in history. And I got you thinking about what home life would have been like just before the children were evacuated. What was it like before any child knew that it was going to be evacuated? What things did we say went on in a normal home in the 30s?
Birds.
Birds might be tweeting, yes.
Clock ticking.
Clock ticking.
People chatting.
Chatting, that's a good one. Yes, people would be talking, wouldn't they?
Rolling the dice.
Yes, they might be rolling the dice, shaking the dice. So we've got some good ideas there already. How does the clock tick? That's very good. Holly, what was your one? Okay. So even with your voices you can make different sounds. What about the chatting? Okay, everybody do some chatting. And stop. How might the bike sound though? The bikes are rather quiet, so how would you... All good? Good. Okay, so you've got some very good ideas with your voices. How can we use those ideas and transfer them to instruments? A ticking clock sound. Do you think that's a good sound?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Aisha, could you come up? See if there's something in there that might make you think of birds. Oh, I can hear them in the trees. That's good.
They don't have to create a lot of different things in order to realise this piece. In fact, very minimal things for this first section will probably work very well. Now, how are you going to organise the children to begin with?
I thought I'd divide them into 5 groups, so there'd be about 3 in each. I'm hoping that perhaps they'll come up with the idea of the clock being the constant, the tick, 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 to create a constant beat.
It's important not to be too literal with the music, so it doesn't become a series of sound effects to a film score in essence. That it can be. We're really trying to captivate the overall mood of this tranquil piece of music.
And Liam and Joseph, you're going to work on the bike.
The dice shaking in the hand.
Show me what you were doing before then, Liam. Show me what you're doing. And what's that going to be?
The wheel.
The wheel.
What was your part in this? What were you going to do? Okay, I thought the way you had your idea with the wings fluttering up and down was a really good one. Yeah? So I'll try a few more ideas out if you want to. When you're doing a composing activity, you're drawing on all the skills that they already know, if they can clapping time, certain rhythms they might be able to play, and they're going to use all these skills to invent their own music. But once they've done that little bit of invention, it's them being able to draw it all together, which lets everybody contribute in some way, and yet gives everybody a chance to hear.
Right, can you all stop and listen? So if we start with the ticking of the clock, which is Rebecca and Harry and Charlie. And stop. What sound were you working on first, Liam? The bike. And stop. I particularly like the sound of the cymbals. It sounds like the scraping of the wheels on the road, doesn't it? Thomas, what sound were you working on?
The ball games.
Okay, off you go.
Go on.
I could hear that dice shaking. Your group now, Amber? What was your sound?
It was chatting.
The chatting. So the sounds of children chatting. And stop. The last group, what sound were you making, Jordan? The birds.
Two of the groups, I'd noticed, had conversation structures, and I thought, you know, they were really coming up with some fantastic ideas about structure, and that's one of the most difficult things to get over, really. Once you've had the initial creative thing about making up your sound, it's how you then put it together, which can be the hardest bit of all.
Do you remember I said that one of the sounds would work well as a constant going through all the time? Which one was that? The clock's going to be going on all the time. So if we recorded that in some way, maybe we could record the ticking clock like this. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And maybe the bike is going to be going round for a while, but then maybe it stops going on and stopping. Right. I made a start doing the notation because I wanted particularly to get that idea of that clock being constant. As I developed it, I thought maybe I'm getting too detailed here. Maybe this is going to restrict them too much. And I also began to feel, well, I'm getting a bit out of my depth here with notation.
I was a little bit worried at first because I thought you were going to stick rigidly to that and they were going to follow it as a score, but then because you just said it really, that you realised that was going to be very restrictive on them. But it gave them a good visual sense of the sort of thing that they might achieve.
So off we go with the clock ticking. And the birds. Board game. Chatter. Bird stop. Bike. Bike stop.
One of the difficulties when you get in a class group to perform together is there are so many sounds and so many individual players doing their own thing. It can become a little bit chaotic sound-wise because even in a symphony orchestra you might only have about 5 or 6 different lines. You know, everybody's doubling up, all the violins are playing together, one line. They're not playing different things.
Chatter stop.
They'd all got these lovely ideas. And we had the ticking clock as a constant thing, but maybe just take it back a little bit and let each group play over the ticking clock.
Excellent, and the clock's still ticking. Clock stops. Right, now something happens to change all this. Is that the sort of thing that would work, do you think?
Getting two very different sections.
Symbol. I mean, you could grip crash there, so that indicated change. You know, onto the train, you know, things are happening.
We've still got quite a lot of rhythm. I'm doing a train rhythm, so it's still all very rhythmical. Another way you can get a a quite different feeling to the whole piece is by not having any rhythm at all really, but just having isolated events. I think it should be quite maybe almost violent and upsetting sounds, uneasy sounds really. So should we try that?
Wonderful class, didn't you do well? Quickly think about how you can change the sounds of your instruments. What might you do to make things seem a little bit more frightening now? And stop. We might need to have a really big sound in there to show that we've suddenly changed our piece of music.
When I was looking at the overall effect of the composition in the loud bit, it was all very active and everything, but I couldn't hear the voices, and maybe that's part of the overall effect. But I thought maybe if we had some bigger use of words at that point. Run!
Help! Look out!
Here it comes!
Where are we going?
Run, run!
Okay, so we're beginning to build another structure again.
Right, what we're going to do now is you're going to think about the journey, the train. What might be the best instrument to make the sound?
Maybe we need to shaking and
Beater as well. Play me a rhythm then for your train.
Good. And then this.
That's a good rhythm.
So we'll go around and listen to everybody's group to see how they interpreted this journey on the train. We start with your group, Liam.
When we were doing the train sounds, each child was working away, and then we just heard them all individually. In reality, that's a whole composition already. So that's a nice little piece, a nice composition task achievable in the time. You got through quite a lot of material as well. You actually made a piece with 3 sections, and the children were listening and concentrating even all the time, even when there was so many sounds going on at some stage. You could still see them all focusing, which was excellent.
I think that you have done well enough to perform this whole piece from start to finish.
Children like to do composition because they're actually creating something. It's like building anything, whether you're doing something in design and technology. I don't really see composition as any different. It helps to develop memory, it helps to develop teamwork, and it makes children think about structures and processes in music, which probably they wouldn't really think about in any other type of art form.
Well done. You have composed a piece of music. Brilliant. Give yourselves a clap.